The Bills are flat out not good enough to beat them. They're not.
Yeah.
And I know the Bills fans would push back on that, and I get it. They're good enough to beat them in week 11. They're not good enough in these big spots. And for people who are like, well, look how close they've been. Great. Awesome. They've lost every one of those games. That's phenomenal. Great. They were this close. That's the problem. They're always that close.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
It's That Football Show here on KC Sports Network. Tucker Franklin hanging out with Matt Verderame as we do every single Thursday. Thank you to our partners, Ben Holiday, Bottled and Bond Bourbon. Had plenty of that this weekend, as well as Holiday Distillery. Matt, you're down in Mobile, Alabama. I just got back from Frisco, Texas. We're doing the College All-Star Game circuit. How you doing?
Okay. I've eaten enough food to take down a small elephant.
Yeah.
But I think I might be the size of a small elephant at this point. But I'm good. I'm full of sodium and rum, and it's been fine. Let's say get out of here about 5 hours from when we're recording this.
Yep.
Head back, and then I've got 5 days to try like detox and breathe. And then it's down to New Orleans. But yeah, it's been good. The Senior Bowl's been good. So no complaints.
We're about to get a blitz of travel here. Matt and I were kind of talking about this prior to starting to the podcast. Obviously, the College All-Star Game circuit does kick that off. Then you have the Super Bowl, then you have the Combine, and then the draft. So there's a whole blitz that the NFL does of traveling that you have to do. And Matt, you mentioned a baby elephant, and it made me think of this tweet that my friend at Solely Football had tweeted out a meme. I'm sure people are familiar with Solely. He said, elephants are born weighing 250 pounds. It's pretty big. They're the biggest babies on earth, except for the people mad at Taylor Swift for being excited at a football game. And I thought that was funny. And you saying a baby elephant made me think of that meme.
Yeah. I think at this point, the Chiefs went from being like this team that America loved watching because you have Mahomes and Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, speed, and all these things. Now I think America, the vast majority of it is just praying for their downfall at this point and can't take it anymore. Bad news for America. They're really good, and Patrick Mahomes is 29 years old, and I don't think all of a sudden that they're just going to start going 7-10 here.
Yeah.
So, listen, it's Taylor Swift is it's going to be at Super Bowl, and I'm guessing we're going to hear and see plenty about her, of her. So buckle up if you're one of these nerds who just freaks out because they're going to show her, as if like they didn't show Gisele Bundchen forever.
That's true.
As if like that didn't exist, or like remember with Tony Romo?
Yes.
Was like dating Jessica Simpson, and they just couldn't stop showing her up in the suites at Texas Stadium. This is not new. No. This is not like this is not the first time that a quarterback has dated somebody famous. Promise. Okay, and of course in this case it's a tight end, but this is not I guess a star player has dated somebody really famous. It's not like, before this, every one of these guys was dating somebody who you've never heard of in your life. So, yeah, it's fine, and I actually think it's gotten to the point it's funny. I think they should show her like 50 times. Just to really rub it in the faces of everybody who can't stand it.
I do think that would be really good. I don't know if you've been seeing this going on, Matt. I'm sure you have. This romanticism of the Tom Brady Patriots dynasties that has been going on the timeline is absolutely bonkers bananas, because people are just pissed off that the Chiefs keep beating their favorite team. So now they're like, well, I didn't actually hate the Patriots that much.
Yeah,
you did. And I think like maybe the heat towards the Patriots still is probably more, I would say, just because of how I think of Spygate. I think of Deflategate. They had several gates around their dynasty. People hated him. People hated Tom Brady. People hated the New England Patriots. And now all of a sudden, they just want us to act like we didn't. They just wanted to act like the Chiefs are the most hated dynasty of all time. I think that's been absolutely ludicrous on the timeline. I've just been kind of shocked by that.
Yeah, listen. Let's be real, okay? I am 36. I went through the entirety of the New England dynasty. People hated them.
Yeah.
With a fiery passion, okay? And by the way, like that dynasty included multiple scandals that saw Tom Brady get suspended, forfeiture of a draft pick, Spygate, Deflategate. There was the matter of during that dynasty, one of their star players murdering people. Okay, fans of other teams hated them and used to constantly say they get all the calls. It's not fair. I'm so sick and tired of them. And like, that's what happens. Look, this is the price of greatness. Okay, if you're a Chiefs fan, people hate you because they ain't you. Like that's truth. It's honest to God's truth. Like it's not a pompous thing. It's truth. People cannot stand them because they're not them. You know what I mean? People in other fan bases, and I mean literally every other fan base in the NFL, wishes that they had a modicum of success compared to this team. I mean, my whole life, when you talked about the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, you talked about black and white footage, and like hell, Super Bowl one, like there is no footage of that game, okay, outside of like NFL films on the sideline. They have now, with this game included, they've now been in 7 Super Bowls. I mean, wow. That's one of the highest totals in the league. Like I think doing off the top of my head, the only teams that have ever been in more, I believe, are the Niners. In fact, this ties the Niners. Am I right with that? No. The Niners have been 8. The Niners, the Pats, the Steelers, and Dallas. I know those are the only 4 teams who've been in Super Bowl more than Kansas City. That's it.
Wow.
And it's sort of a franchise that went forever. When you were like, oh, the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, you're like, oh, Super Bowl 4. You know? Like, It was almost like mythical that they got to a Super Bowl. And now they've been to 5 in 6 years, which no team's ever done. They're obviously trying to do something next Sunday that no team has ever done.
Right.
And we're to a point where, like, look, win or lose, they're going to be the favorites on the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah.
Like, they're just immediately going to be installed as the favorite next year to win the Super Bowl. So, yes, I would tell people that hate him, like, I get it. And I'd buckle up.
Look at the numbers here. I pulled that up real quick. Patriots have 11. There's 4 teams with 8. Niners, Broncos, Steelers, Cowboys, and the Chiefs have 7.
I didn't think about the Broncos. Yeah, that's right. Yep. It's because the Broncos lost like the first 5 they were in, but yes.
Right. Correct. And that's the thing about the Chiefs, too. Like, they've been in 7, and I guess this is going to be their 7th. So let's say they've been in 6 and have lost 2, right? If that math would be right. Yeah.
1,
4, right?
Lost 2, yeah. This will be, right. Here's number 7.
Yep. That math is right. So, shout out. I graduated kindergarten to do basic math. But Matt, let's talk about championship weekend. First, let's start with the Chiefs, and we'll get to the Eagles-Commander game, which was fairly uneventful in terms of that matchup. Kind of towards the end there, the Eagles kind of ran away with it. But first, what's your biggest takeaway from that game? The Chiefs and Bills game, another classic banger from Mahomes and from Allen. Mahomes, again, because it's in the playoffs, comes out on top.
So, look, Championship Sunday for me, you had the appetizer in the early game where Washington was like, here's 19 turnovers, and then just was smoked into oblivion.
Right.
Yeah. That game, I don't have much of a takeaway other than just Washington's a really young team. Mm-hmm. And that happens. When you're real young and you're a little overwhelmed by the moment, you're on the road in a tough place and all the rest. The Kansas City-Buffalo game was another one of these like all-time great games. I will say up front, I don't give a shit about the talk about the officials, so I'm not even going to touch that. Anyone who does that is a pandering loser.
Yes.
And should be banned from ever going on radio or TV, and maybe even sent out of the country permanently. Nothing's too far. I think from a Chiefs perspective, that game was about what they've been about for the last 7 years, which is just they find ways to win games. In that game, it was going to be, hey, listen, you got to score. You got to score in this game. And it's usually like, great, there's 32 points. I mean, whatever it takes. And the defense made a play here and a play there. And it was enough. From Buffalo's perspective, this isn't the most high-level analysis in the world, but I really feel like you just walk out of like, what do we have to do? Like, what do we have to do to get over the hump? And look, I will say this. My answer to that is they have got to find a pass rusher. They just have to. They have, like guys, gals, I'm going to tell you right now, and I know we got a week to get in the Super Bowl and everything else, and Tucker and everybody be down there, and I'll be down there Wednesday, and I'll stay for the game. Like, if Philadelphia does not get to Mahomes, they're losing. We can spend infinitum talking about every other matchup on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
None of it matters. If they don't get to him, they're going home. And Buffalo in that game, we could talk about Benford getting hurt and Elam being terrible, and fine. All that matters, I'm telling you right now, they could have had God at corner. They couldn't get to him. They couldn't touch him. And that was the game. I mean, so, I think if you're Buffalo, you're sitting there going, oh my God, like, what do we do? How the hell, like, what do we have to do to beat this guy? And if you're Kansas City, you're like, yep, made 4 or 5 really big plays, outcoached Buffalo again.
Mm-hmm.
Allen's great. Mahomes is better. And, if you watch that game, and this isn't a slam on Allen, it's a credit to Mahomes. It's all the little things that aren't in the box score.
Yeah.
Like, with all due respect to Josh Allen, Mahomes is not sliding in protection the wrong way at 4th and 5. He's not.
Yep.
Right? Like, he's not coming out and having that abomination of a first drive, which you might go, well, after that, he settled down. Okay, great. But that was a wasted drive that the Chiefs then immediately went down, made it 7-0. It put them behind the 8 ball. There was a certain thing. Allen also fumbled the ball like 800 times in that game and was able to recover them all. But like, Mahomes just played a cleaner game. He played a little bit more of a buttoned up game. And like in these spots, that is oftentimes the difference. It really is. And you don't see it in a box score, but like you see it in the moment. You see it in the game. Allen wasn't bad, but Mahomes was great. And that's the big difference.
That is. And I want to let's talk specifically about the offense here, because I do think that for me, man, I don't know what your feelings were, but coming into this game, I felt pretty good about the Chiefs' chances and more just thought about matchup-wise, personnel-wise. I feel like the Chiefs kind of had an advantage personnel-wise on the offensive side of the ball over what the Bills had on the defensive side of the ball. But after that first drive where they just RPO'd them to death, I was like, oh, they're not losing this game. They're not going to lose this game. They came out and did something that they have not done all year. Granted, they did a little bit of the RPO stuff. I think it was against the Steelers, I want to say. When Hollywood Brown was back, they did a little bit of it, but they didn't really go back to it against the Texans all that much. They came out and did and put together a great opening drive. And I felt at least, I was like, oh, they're not going to lose this game. They then go on to put up 32 points, which they haven't done all year. They're their highest point total all year. And you mentioned it too. They said, you're going to have to score points in this game. They said, okay, we'll go ahead and score more points than we've ever scored this season. And they did it. And that's what's so impressive, I think, about this offense. And we start to look around at like, okay, well, they've got a left guard playing left tackle. They're running with 4 interior offensive linemen on their offensive line, going up a decent pass rush. And what Buffalo has, I do think that probably Phillies is better, but I do think the Texans is better than Phillies. So like, the interior is going to be tough for Caliendo. I do worry about that. The wide receivers, still not a bunch of use of DeAndre Hopkins here in this game, but at least a wide receiver other than Xavier Worthy caught a pass. So that's a plus. I felt pretty good. That opening drive kind of put a lot of the nerves that I had Matt to rest.
I just think we've gotten to a point, if we hadn't already gotten to the point with them, where, look, sitting there and worrying about all their stats week to week and worrying about, during the regular season, they had X amount of yards per play, and I don't know what to do. They don't care.
No.
It doesn't matter. They just want to win those games and save as much as humanly possible for January and February. And they came out against the Bills and ran like 8 plays that we haven't seen all year long. And guess what? The Bills hadn't seen them either. And the Chiefs just rolled downfield 100 miles an hour. It was a touchdown. And then they get down in the red zone late in the game, trailing by a point, and Mahomes keeps it on an RPO, which how many times has Mahomes kept an RPO this year? 0?
Yeah.
And just plows into the end zone from 12 yards out. If you look at that play, Noah Gray and Travis Kelce are literally just like trying to find someone to block because it's so like they're just like, I don't know where the hell to grab. Like it's I guarantee you in the Super Bowl they're gonna have 20, 25 plays. They just haven't shown.
Right.
They are just like, yeah, you know what? None of this is on film. 0. And they will break tendency and they will do different things and they will confound Philadelphia because it will show all this stuff. And people will say, well, it's just Mahomes playing his best in the big moments. And like, yeah, that's kind of true.
Mm-hmm.
It's also Andy being his best when they have purposefully sat on some of this stuff. And it makes us all lose our minds and they're beating Carolina by a field goal. But they just look at it differently than we all do. They look at it like, listen, we can survive. We can survive by sitting on a bunch of our best red zone stuff and a bunch of our best third down stuff. And if we can do that, we're a lot better off for the playoffs. I mean, look, man, even that Houston game, it wasn't like they showed a whole lot of stuff. You're just trying to like, yeah, all right, we can beat Houston. I mean, this was the first game all year where you really felt like, man, they're opening up the war chest here a little bit in this game. Like, and guess what? They scored 32 points, and Buffalo had no answer for them all night long. Like, I mean, honestly, it gets forgotten because it doesn't matter now they won. If Mahomes doesn't fumble that ball early in the game, we might have been headed for like 28-10 at halftime, and again, good night. I mean, they were annihilating the Bills early in that game. That's the only reason that game, quite honestly, early was even close. Buffalo had no shot, man. I mean, somebody go back and look. I think on those first 2 drives for Mahomes fumble, I think the Chiefs had 1 third down. It was just like right down the field. They didn't have one on the first drive.
Right.
I think in the second drive they had 1 third down. I mean, they just flew down the field with no issue at all. Also, as a side note, one guy who I think might be a real big factor in the Super Bowl that no one's going to talk about. Remigio's, he's a really good returner.
He is.
Like, shockingly good.
Yeah.
Like the kind of a guy that I'm pretty sure if he was a returner all year long, probably would have a couple touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Like that level of good. He has had 2 massive returns in the playoffs and also had a huge one against Pittsburgh at the end of the regular season. Like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Do you remember when Remigio become their return man?
Gosh, I can't remember. Was it when McCole got hurt? When they had to put McCole back on? Well, McCole's been on the IR for a while. I don't think he's been.
Okay. He became the return man against the Chargers on that Sunday night game.
Which that might have been the first time McCole was on the IR. I have to go back to look.
Here's my thing, right? Like in a day and age when everybody gets no yardage because of touchbacks and punters are buried there, but
right.
2 returns for 52 yards against the Chargers on kicks. Like, okay, fine. Houston, the regular season game, 5 returns for 129 yards. 3 returns against Pittsburgh for 78 yards. 1 return for 36 against Denver, And then punt return wise, 3 for 34. It doesn't sound like that's great. 3 for 23. That's good. 1 for 9. 3 for 34 again. And then in the playoffs, has 3 returns on kicks against Houston for 110 yards and 1 punt return for 11. And then against Buffalo, 4 kick returns for $107 and 1 punt return for 41 yards. Like, the guy, look, man, that's a real thing. Like, in the Super Bowl, if he pops one, that might be ball game, depending when he does it. Like, he had become a real weapon for them, and really out of absolutely nowhere.
It's been one of those things too, where I think that teams is going to be an advantage for the Chiefs in this game. As like you said, Matt, we're going to have a whole other podcast before the Super Bowl to actually break down this matchup. I don't know if you saw the clip of Bill Belichick just kind of waxing poetically about how good the Chiefs special teams are. Of course, Bill Belichick would be the guy to point out the great special teams that the Chiefs have, but it could be a real advantage for them. We obviously know that they got Harrison Butker, who is a weapon to add points, put points on the board. But now that you have a good returner that you feel confident in, Remigio, obviously he did fumble that ball against the Texans, and like that was less than ideal. But you got the ball back, so it's okay. Everything's all right there. But teams is going to be really important in this game because it's going to be a 3-phase game. Like that's not going to be a shock when it comes down to the Super Bowl. Some of these plays, some of these deciding plays happen on special teams. We saw with the Kadarius Toney punt return against the Eagles. So I mean, these things happen. Hopefully, this field is not as wet, so the Eagles don't have an excuse built in for them.
I forgot about that. Yes, let's hope the field is ideal.
Yeah, the field has to be pristine conditions for them. So they can. It's not because only they were playing on it, Matt. I don't know if you know that, but they had a different field that the Chiefs were playing on, also at the same time. It was ridiculous.
Between that and now this this referee stuff, my God,
yeah,
that'd be it. Look, no, I think to go to just look, we're not going to, I'm sure, go too far into this, but like this game to me is really all about like we're gonna talk about matchups and whatnot, and we'll look at it next week and all that. But I mean, this game really is about can Philadelphia get to Mahomes?
Yeah,
because if they can't, this game's over. I don't even care what Barkley does. I really don't. Like, and it's not to minimize his impact. He could have a huge impact. I guess I just kind of feel like Spagnuolo's going to do some things to at least limit him. I mean, they're not going to stop him, but limit him.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia can't get home. They just get back in the bus. I don't care. I don't care who the hell's in the secondary. It doesn't matter. They will light them up like a Christmas tree with 2 weeks to prepare, all the stuff they haven't shown. Now they've got Hollywood Brown. He's started to look like he can do something here in the AFC title game. You've got Xavier Worthy, who's gotten better every week. Look, Travis Kelce against Oren Burks is not a match that Philadelphia wants to live with, okay? And if you don't believe me, go watch the Super Bowl last year when Travis Kelce faced off against Oren Burks when Greenlaw got hurt and annihilated him over and over and over. Like, this game is going to be about, can Jalen Carter wreck the game?
Mm.
That's it. And, like, that is a concern with Mike Caliendo in there.
Yeah.
And I wonder in this game, do you move Tooney back inside for this game? Because they do not have a great edge rush. It's not great, man. Like, this is not the Eagles of 2 years ago where they had 70 sacks. Like, Jalen Carter's awesome. Milton Williams is like, he's fine inside, but he's not going to, like, wreck shop. Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat, not saying they're not good players, but they're not game wreckers. Like, they're not, Hassan Reddick that one year. We were like 70.5 sacks. I mean, Nolan Smith this year had 6.5 sacks in 16 games. Okay. And to his credit, has 4 in the playoffs. I would also point out that they have played 3 offensive lines that range from middling to absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
So, I think that also has to be somewhat factored in. But yeah, like Nolan Smith, 6.5, sacks this year. Josh Sweat has 8. He's a good player. I think I'm trying to be fair here. He's a quality player. He has 1 sack in his last 10 games. Like, this is not Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter ripping off the edge here.
Right.
Okay? So, like, I do wonder, and my guess is the Chiefs won't. They'll just keep it the way it is. But, like, they can block Carter at all. They should block this team. They really should. And for anybody who doesn't know, who's unaware, like, Vic Fangio is the D coordinator for the Eagles. He is not blitz at all. He's bottom 5 in blitz rate. Their pressure numbers are not good. They're bottom of the league in pressure. They're middle of the league in sacks. They are bottom of the league in quarterback hits. Like, they just don't get there. And that's great and fine when you're playing Cooper Rush and Drew Lock and whoever the fuck was the Saints quarterback when they played them. Okay, I think at that point it was Derek Carr still.
Yeah.
That's great. It doesn't matter. But like when you're playing Mahomes, it matters. And, we can sit here all day, the man or zone or too high. None of that matters. None of it. Like, you got to get to him. That to me is going to be the biggest matchup to watch. Is how do the Chiefs block? What do they do? All those things.
And it's been 25 minutes in this podcast. We haven't even mentioned the defense or Steve Spagnuolo and how he just kind of called the game. That was a really impressive performance from Spags. We're going to take a break, and on the other side, we're going to talk about the Chiefs defense coming up right after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Matt, a lot of these Chiefs games kind of follow the same script of, get off to a good start, good opening drive, weather the storm in the second quarter, take a lead into halftime. Third quarter, absolute stinker. Don't do anything in the third quarter. No points being scored. Like, that wasn't the first time all season the Chiefs have not scored a point in the third quarter. Actually happened quite a bit. And then they just do enough in the fourth quarter to get the job done. And my favorite part of a game, Matt, is when Steve Spagnuolo says, all right, I'm going to go ahead and call a game. I'm going to go ahead and dial this one up. And you guys, it was fun. Glad you guys came out. Glad you guys participated. Thank you for coming to the Arrowhead Invitational. We're going to go ahead and take this one. And he just sends something that he has never sent before and absolutely confuses the quarterback, confuses everybody on the offense, and gets home and makes a big play. Thoughts on Steve Spagnuolo's overall masterclass? Look, we talked about the coaching on the offensive side of the ball being a big difference maker. I think the defensive coaching was really big in this one too.
No doubt. I mean, look, we could point to a lot of things. Let's just go right to the last defensive play of the game.
Let's do it.
Because to me, that's player base you remember from this game, along with this stuff. Actually, so let's go to that first. So the Chiefs faced the tush push or whatever the hell you want to call that play. Okay,
yeah, 5
times. The Bills are 2 for 5.
Yep.
The Chiefs had not stopped a quarterback sneak one time all year. Not once.
Right.
I forget who I saw the stat from. Forgive me. It was on Twitter. The Chiefs were 32 of 32 in giving up quarterback sneaks on that game.
Unreal.
But see, this is where coaching matters. Like, the Chiefs and Spagnuolo were like, hey, they go over the left guard every single time. And the Bills, apparently just unaware of the fact they go over the left guard every single time, could not figure out how the Chiefs kept stuffing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he went over right guard, he might still be running.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs were like, hey, they're not gonna figure it out. We're just gonna keep doing this. And look at that. Like, they never figured it out. I don't know if Allen got that first down or not. Okay. And we could parse it a million ways. Here's my honest feeling, and anybody who knows me knows I feel like this genuinely. If that was the other way around, I'd be sitting here going, you know what? Then maybe run something different because you've had no ability to pick up a foot all night on it. And also, you might have gotten it. You might not have gotten it. But guess what? When you leave it that close,
yep,
you are at the mercy of 60-some-odd-year-old men running in from 90 feet away trying to figure out where the point of the football got to. Like, you may be right, you may be wrong, but it's going to be really close. And once they called it on the field that he was short, I knew they were not going to overturn it.
Correct.
It was too close. It was impossible to definitively sit there and say, oh, yeah, he definitely got it, at least in my opinion. But that 4th down, for the 4th and 5, I think a couple things have gone a little bit under talked about here because the main discourse the next day was how Ryan Leaf wanted to basically attack Ben Solak. That was the discourse coming out now. Ryan Leaf is being like, Tristan, like, okay, like Ryan, you weren't involved in this. Calm down. He's down here from Mobile, and I actually I've never had any interaction with Ryan. It seems like a nice guy, but I wanted to go up to him and just be, hey man, like, you want to talk and stuff?
What if Ben was there too?
He always is too, but he's not here.
I know. Oh, weird coincidence.
Yeah, I think he probably canceled all flights.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I'm sure they'll see each other at the Super Bowl. He had to add like a security team in between the two of them.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good. But no, look, so the point is on that play, if you go back and you watch it, a couple things about the Bills, which is just to me, like if Spags had a masterclass, this is a disaster class of coaching. Okay. You come out of the 2-minute warning. So you're at the 2-minute warning, which means you didn't just have you didn't have regular timeout, you have TV timeout. So you've got 90 seconds minimum to like, okay, let's go through this. On that play, Shakir runs that orbit motion, right? Anybody who knows ball knows that when he starts that motion from regular receiver position back to Allen, if a corner doesn't go with him, they're in zone.
Correct.
Right? Now, he does this with like 22 on the play clock.
Right. That's the other thing that goes into this.
How the hell do the Bills not have a check with me on this play where it's like, hey, listen, if he goes in motion and there's nobody moving with him, this is already a bad play.
Yes.
This is not a play we want to run. Like, let's get out of this and get to our best zone beater. They never did that. That's number one. Number two, they were on the right hash to snap the ball.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs live to blitz when you're in a condensed formation, which for those of you who don't know, that just means you're inside the numbers, the whole formation.
Yep.
The Bills are in a condensed formation and could not be any tighter to the short side of the field, in the boundary side of the field. And the third thing, which this should have tipped off Allen. Okay, this is on Allen. You've got McDuffie on that side. You've got Justin Reed basically lined up like a defensive tackle. Okay, those are their two best secondary blitzers.
Yeah.
Allen should have looked at that and said to himself, short side of the field, both of these guys are on this side. We just ran motion. Nobody moved. Are they really going to have McDuffie lined up on the short side of the field? Now, like, look, I'm not the quarterback. Allen might say, hey, man, I thought of this, and this. Right? Yeah, sure. I'm sure there are things that go into this that I couldn't understand that Allen would explain a lot better than me. But the overall point is, you knew immediately when he went into that motion, this is probably not a great play to run.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Reed, you probably knows blitzing. Okay. McDuffie, I get it. Like, you're not accounting for him in the count up front. I understand all that. But if you're Allen and you've done your work, I'm assuming you did, you know that guy blitzes a lot in big spots. Don't believe me. Go watch the Super Bowl a year ago. Okay? Like, they will send him. The Bills just set Allen up for disaster on this play because he can't go anywhere. Like,
no,
he can't go to his left because there's just immediate pressure.
Mm-hmm.
He can't. If they're in the left hash, maybe he can kind of go back and roll out to the right.
Yeah.
He had no room.
Mm-hmm.
He had nowhere to go. Now, credit to Spags. It's a great blitz. And they were going to get somebody free on that pressure, just the way it was set up. The Bills did Allen no favors.
Mm-hmm.
They should have had a check with me. It's like, okay, if it's zone, do this, whatever, get the ball out quick. Some of it then you could do with some of that stuff, like you're in a condensed formation. You're on the short side of the field. Like, not like genius coaching there. Just wasn't the best coaching we've ever seen. And, Spags dialed up a beauty.
I think it was Tyler Dunn after the game wrote something with Deion Dawkins, or he spoke with Deion Dawkins kind of about the look the Chiefs presented. Tyler does phenomenal work too, by the way. He's the one who kind of broke all the whole Sean McDermott 9/11 story, which phenomenal story that he wrote there with the Buffalo Bills. He's very good. I love Tyler. Deion Dawkins said they'd shown that look all game that the Chiefs have, and every time that they mug it, every time they come up to show it, they dropped out. Every time that they didn't show it, they would do it. So it was almost like mental warfare, right? For Spags. Again, Matt, we talked about with Andy Reid of doing something that teams had not seen. Steve Spagnuolo comes with the same thing, doing things that teams had not seen when sending, granted that he sends Trent McDuffie and Justin Reid a lot, but in the same look that he presented, never did that. And I do think that play was, as you mentioned, dead on arrival. Number one, so he slid the protection to Chris Jones. Makes sense, right? Like, you don't want Chris Jones to have a one-on-one. You'd rather slide to Chris Jones. But then when you start to look at it, the Chiefs sent more guys than they had in protection. So it was only a 5-man protection with what was it, Shakir, right? Who was on the orbit, who Ben Select thought that he should who thought Josh Allen should 360 no scope him as he's rolling out to his right. But it was dead. The protection was dead no matter what they did, right? Because they only had 5 guys in to protect. The Chiefs sent 6, I think. So like, there's going to be a free rusher. When you look at it, that's just, sometimes the numbers game just works out that way. And George got to him. Trent got to him. Trent might be the best big time, like, in terms of, like, you need a clutch pass rush. Trent McDuffie is going to impact a play, and he is always going to do it. So to your point, Matt, like, how do you not just kind of think, hey, maybe this guy is going to come. Maybe this guy is gonna blitz here.
I also think, I think it's Jeff Schwartz who pointed out, I could be wrong, could have been somebody else, I thought it was Jeff, pointed out that there was one receiver on the boundary side of the field for the Bills, and there were 3 coverage guys for the Chiefs on that side of the field. Like, that probably also should be an indicator that, like, oh my God, they're bringing everyone. Also, too, like, the one thing I'll never understand with some of these teams, and look, you can argue that if it was a man blitz, like man behind it, maybe you feel like, okay, this is good enough. But, like, they're blitzing in that spot. Like, that it's coming. And it was like the Bills were just shocked by that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, like, they're bringing everybody. Like, they're gonna, they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like, you go think about the Super Bowl last year. 3rd down, out of the 2-minute warning. The biggest play you could argue, the biggest single play of the dynasty. They don't stop them there. They lose.
Right.
They're going to lose that game. And what did they do? They brought McDuffie out of blitz.
Yeah.
He came clean. He knocked down the pass. They go to overtime. It's 3rd and 4. Inside the 10. They brought Justin Reid on a blitz. They got Chris Jones through a busted protection. They stop him. This game, the 3rd down before the 4th down, cover 0 blitz. Here it is. Everybody. Right? Like, that's what they do defensively. That is who they are. They're not going to sit back. They do not want to play that way. They will not play that way. When you're under pressure in life, you become what you are most comfortable being. That is the way every human being works. And when you look at the Chiefs' numbers this year, they are 4th in blitz rate. By the way, Philadelphia's 28th, okay? The Chiefs are 4th in blitz rate. They are going to get after your ass. If it is a meaningful spot in the game and they feel like if we get a stop here, it's a big one, they're probably going to blitz you.
Yep.
That is the way that team operates. The Chiefs were 2nd in the league in quarterback knockdown rate. They were 6th in hurry rate. All right. Like, they were 5th in just overall pressure rate. Spagnuolo believes in, if we can get to your quarterback, we're probably going to win. And I got to tell you, in the Super Bowl, if you look at Jalen Hurts against pressure this year, it has not been particularly impressive. How much would you like to bet that the Chiefs are just going to absolutely unload in every 3rd and long they get into, and they're going to put those corners on the boundary, one-on-one, and go, all right, here it comes.
Mm-hmm.
Beat it. Do it. I mean, if you look at Philadelphia this year, they do not throw over the middle of the field. It is a lot of stuff outside the numbers. You don't think Spagnuolo is going to realize that? and game it up that way. I mean, he's basically going to be, you want to throw it in the middle of the field to Jahan Dotson? You do it. Like, that's how they're going to play.
Yeah.
That's how they're going to play. By the way, I would be willing to bet strongly after what we saw in the AFC title game where Najee Johnson started the game and then just was nowhere to be found in the second half of the game.
Yeah.
In a game where the Eagles do not throw to the middle of the field, I'm going to go ahead and guess we're not seeing a whole lot of Najee Johnson in this game.
19 snaps for Najee. I'm looking up the snap counts right now.
I'm pretty sure they're all in the first half.
Yeah. He had a similar snap count to Derek Nottie. Nottie had one less snap than him.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and guess that you're going to see Tamar Connor in the slot for this game and McDuffie and Watson outside. I think it's pretty much exclusively what you're getting because Joshua Williams, I think it's clear, is not playing. And Christian Wallace is not playing. So I think you're about to see about 100% of the snaps for Connor, Watson, and McDuffie. Like, look, one thing about the Super Bowl, no matter whether you win or lose, there's no game the next week. Like, they're not going to be sitting there going, hey, you know what, Jalen, we're gonna play you 70% of the game here. Keep you fresh. Like, hey, Jalen, go to play 105% of the snaps. Like, here it comes. You know, like, it's it. It's all on the table.
It is. It's going to be a good matchup. I'm excited to talk, kind of dive into this game. Early feelings, I feel pretty good Chiefs-wise about that matchup with the Eagles. But we'll talk about that next week, man. I kind of want to talk about with you, what do the Bills do now, man? Like, where do the Buffalo Bills go? I kind of think they might need a change in coaching. Like, is this as far as Sean McDermott can take them? I don't know. But then again, who are they going to hire? Like, who is going to take them higher than Sean McDermott has right now? I don't know, but it seems like something needs to change in Buffalo.
Yeah. You know what? It's like I said earlier, we could talk about McDermott. We could talk about a lot of things in Buffalo. They've got to find a pass rush.
Yeah.
They're not beating this team without a pass rush. They're not. The difference in that game was the Chiefs were able to harass Allen throughout. It doesn't mean that they sacked him a ton. Both quarterbacks only sacked twice. But the Chiefs pressured Allen a lot in that game. Chris Jones had 8 pressures in the first half by himself.
Yeah.
Like, the Bills do not have anybody on the level of Chris Jones or even near it. Like, Greg Rousseau's fine. He'd be the 4th best pass rusher on the Chiefs. Like, he'd be the 4th best guy. It's like, okay, great. AJ Panessa is Mike Dana. Like, he's fine, but if he's starting and playing a bulkier snaps, you got a problem. The Bills are flat out not good enough to beat them. They're not.
Yeah.
And I know the Bills fans would push back on that, and I get it. They're good enough to beat them in week 11. They're not good enough in these big spots. And for people who are like, well, look how close they've been. Great. Awesome. They've lost every one of those games. That's phenomenal. Great. They were this close. That's the problem. They're always that close. You know, it's like the 13 seconds game. Well, you know, if the coaches hadn't fallen it, the defense had been better, yeah, great. Right. Yep. That's the problem. If Bassett hit the field goal and that's the problem. You know, in this game, well, you know, if Kincaid had caught the ball and that's why you do not win these games. Because every single year there's an indifferent, well, this, well, that. You know, here's a common thread for you. In 4 playoff losses to the Chiefs, they have 5 sacks. You are not going to beat the Chiefs ever with that kind of defensive line performance. Ever. You need a miracle to win with that. And Allen has not been the problem in these games. He's been fine.
Yeah, he's been good.
The problem is our defensive line stinks. Year in and year out. It does. Like people, Ed Oliver on his face is fine.
Yeah.
Rousseau is a nice player. But man, in the Super Bowl and the AFC title game, like, you win primarily based off of coaching and great players. Like, that's why you win. On Buffalo right now, how many guys are on that team that you're like, that guy's going to the Hall of Fame?
One.
Okay, I don't even include Von Miller because he's 1,000 years old. Like,
Okay, I forgot about Von Miller too.
Right. But like Von Miller's like a hood ornament at this point. Okay.
No, yeah.
Right. Like one. How many guys are at Kansas City right now that are going to walk into Canton? You know, you've got Mahomes, you've got Kelsey, you've got Jones. Obviously, we'll see they're super young, but guys like a McDuffie and a Humphrey. You know, DeAndre Hopkins, like not a huge factor. I kind of like the Von Miller thing, right? But like going to the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Tooney might go to the Hall of Fame.
Should, yeah.
He certainly got a resume that like is starting to get to that point. They have major blue chip guys at huge positions. Like the Bills have guys, and it's like Allen has done, I think, really all he can. And by the way, I should also mention the Chiefs have 2 guys on their coaching staff. They're going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
but it's like, and by the way, and I don't, if this is like a salt in the wound thing, I don't mean it to be, but it's the truth. Brett Veach has also just stitched the clown suit on Brandon Beane.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, Kyrie Elam, Trent McDuffie, right? Like Xavier Worthy and Keon Coleman. The Bills had Xavier Worthy. They could have picked him. And they were like, nah, it's all right. You take him.
Mm-hmm.
The guy goes out for over 100 yards in the AFC Championship game, and Keon Coleman had 1 catch for 12 yards.
Yep.
The Mahomes is literally on the Chiefs because the Bills were like, hey, we're on the clock and can take Patrick Mahomes. You have him.
Yep.
I mean, the Chiefs have just stitched a clown suit on them personnel-wise for years. And if you look like, hey, man, 3-year deal for Curtis Samuel. How's that looking right now?
Mm-hmm.
Big 3-year deal for Dawson Knox. How's that looking right now? 6 and 120 for Von Miller. We are halfway through that deal. How's that looking right about now? These contracts and like these draft picks in the first round, they're disasters. Greg Rousseau is a first-round pick, isn't a terrible pick, but it's not a home run. It's a Boogie Basham in the second round. That is a train wreck of a pick. The Chiefs took Rashee Rice. Okay? When you think about over the years, recent draft history of the Bills, and the reason I bring this up is like the Bills are going to have to draft better. That's the answer going forward because they're not going to have the cap space. If you look at the recent draft history of the Buffalo Bills, okay, under Brandon Beane. Now this year, listen, we don't know yet. It's so early. But
For sure.
It's not great early on. Like Keon Coleman's not been great. Cole Bishop, we'll see. Dwayne Carter is a 3rd-round pick. He's healthy and active. Like Ray Davis, their 4th-round running back, is by far their best pick. Okay?
Yes.
Now, the year prior to that, it's Dalton Kincaid, Osiris Torrance, Dorian Williams, Justin Shorter, Nick Broker, Alex Austin. Like, Torrance is good.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of these guys, kind of, all right? Year before that. Now, to be fair, this was a really good class in 2022, but they drafted Kyrie Elam in the 1st round.
Yeah.
And they found Cook and Bernard and Shakir, and then they drafted Arise, who's now in the Chiefs. And Benford.
Right.
Like, that's a really good class. The year before that, they got Spencer Brown in the 3rd and Rousseau in the 1st. Everybody else out of that class, disaster. That's the Boogie Basham class. The year before that, like a disaster. Like, they just, you can't, their 2nd-round picks have been like AJ Panessa, Boogie Basham, James Cook, Osiris Torres, and like Cole Bishop. And like, that's not terrible. The Chiefs have drafted Creed Humphrey and Nick Bolton and Rashee Rice and like it's just on and on. Like, Brian Cook. Like, this is why they're better than you. Like, this is why like, the Chiefs draft guys constantly in the middle rounds and the late rounds, and they just hit. And it doesn't mean they're without fail or not without fail. Like, look, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, you probably wouldn't take him again in the 1st round, right? But like, the Chiefs, by and large, have just outdone their personnel department, and then they have better coaches, and therefore have better coaches with better players. Good day.
Simple as that. You want to win, get good players. I know it's not a groundbreaking take, but like, look, there's something for this in college, where there's Bud Elliott has a blue chip ratio in terms of like players on your roster, and if people who have a high blue chip ratio usually win the national championship because you're going to want to sit down for this. Good players win games. Like, that's just kind of what happens. You got to be able to find these good players. I do think, Matt, I was watching the 2020 AFC Championship game the last time that the Chiefs played the Bills. I guess it technically be 2021, right, when that game happened. But
January, the 2020 season.
Correct. And I was watching that game. That roster was so much better than the roster they have now. Like this, I think this roster talent wise for the Buffalo Bills was not as good as even the roster that they had like last year. I do think that like Allen to an extent carried them as far as he could in this playoffs.
I agree. Look, I think, to do what I never do and try to be succinct, I think the AFC in general has to sit there and ask itself a real honest question this offseason. Like, what do you do? How do you get past this? And I get it. The Chiefs have, free agents this offseason. Of course, we'll get to that here in the coming weeks. Like, they've got Trace Matt and Nick Bolton and Justin Reed and, Marquise Brown and, on and on. And they certainly, will be hurt by losing a few of those guys, whoever they end up being. They're probably going to win like 13 or 14 games next year. They are still going to have a ton of guys. And, oh, by the way, Rashee Rice will be back at some point next year.
Yeah.
And, they'll have him and Worthy with Mahomes and I would think Kelsey. And it's just like another draft class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just, if you're the Ravens, the Bills, the Bengals, anybody in the AFC West, like, how do you beat them? What do you do? And I think the answer to this is just, look, first of all, there's no easy answer, but you've almost got to lean in, I think, to one side of the ball and just say, but we're going to just do whatever we can do on that side of the ball. We're either going to be a team like Detroit who can score 40 in any given game and make the Chiefs keep up, or we're going to try to build the best defense in football and just be completely dominant on that side of the ball. Like, my answer is I would try to build an offense because I got to tell you, I mean, Mahomes' numbers against number one defenses are hysterical. Like, the guy is like 9-1 or something and scores like 34 points a game.
Right.
It's so hard. There's no easy answer, but I think you get these teams that are like the Dolphins. Like, we're going to be fast. That's nice. Like, that's not a plan. Like, you need to build up a certain side of the ball and be dominant on that side of the ball. Like the Ravens at least have an identity, but the problem is it's very
taking it out of their own damn way.
Yeah, right. Like, part of their identity also is like taking a million penalties.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, man. There's no easy answer, but some of these teams are going to have to start to think about things in a different way. I think they're really going to have to kind of change the way they view building the roster.
Absolutely. And we'll get to see how that happens as we are doing our travel circuit for the NFL. We'll be at the Combine here before you know it, at the end of February. We're recording this on Thursday, so it's almost February. Then we'll be there at the end of February, beginning of March. Obviously, Super Bowl coming up here. We'll get some early rumblings on some off-season things, some contract stuff, some free agents. I believe, Matt, today, when we're recording this podcast, marks the anniversary of when the Chiefs traded Alex Smith to the Washington football team and started the Patrick Mahomes era of Chiefs football, which, you know what, has worked out pretty well. I think they won that trade. They got Kendall Fuller back. I can't remember who that pick turned into that they got back, but they got Kendall Fuller. They obviously cleared the spot for Mahomes to be the starting quarterback. So I think that they might have won that one.
It worked out okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's going to do it for this week's edition of That Football Show. As you mentioned, we'll be back next week to preview, to look deeper into the matchups with the Chiefs and Eagles. Again, there's just so much time in between now and then. We felt we would hone in just kind of on this game. But for Matt Verderame, I'm Tucker Franklin. We will talk to you guys next week on That Football Show.